Museum. It's good to see all of you here today. Weather is cooperating, at least for now. I would like to start us off, all we can. Please rise for our opening prayer. Please bow our heads in prayer. Lord, our Creator, we offer you great thanks for the creation that you've provided, for the love that you show each and every one of us, for the blessings of the food that's been provided, for those who support the museum. We always understand the great benefit of the Bronstein Foundation that makes this luncheon possible. As we gather today, upcoming is Memorial Day, and it is fitting that we honor and think about those who have given their lives for this country, those who may be about to give their lives, and the great sacrifice that they have made. We would wish that in our hearts we honor them this day, this weekend, and for the rest of our lives. Also this day, we ask your blessings upon the family and the moms and dads and the direction that you give to raise our children in the correct way. And we also ask for your guidance and your wisdom as we live our lives. We give you great thanks. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing while Larry Head leads us in our national anthem.
Thank you, John. Please feel free to join in. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Before we announce our speaker today, we'd like to make a few announcements. There is a birthday card that's circulating, and you're all invited to sign it. The birthday card is for a gentleman named Bob Huddleston. He turns 102 years old. Bob is very special in a number of ways. He's one of the very last living P-47 pilots in the world. Also, Bob is a huge benefactor to the Evansville Wartime Museum. Bob believes in education, educating the youth so that what we've learned in the past the heroes we've known in the past, all these things that can easily be forgotten. Bob is a big financial supporter of the education tours that come through the museum. There are kids that get to come here that would not be able to be here unless Bob had not donated a great deal of money. We are eternally grateful for Bob, and we celebrate him for being a P-47 pilot who's 102 years old, and in his heart, he would love to come here and get in our P-47 and do a few laps around the airfield, but he knows he can't. One other thing, we got lunch and share on June the 4th. Put my notes together. I usually don't like to speak with notes, but today I need notes. So June 4th, Amy Groves from the Candles Museum, she will be talking about art and the Holocaust. Our speaker today, Don Simpson, born in Evansville, longtime Evansville resident, funeral director at Alexander Funeral Home for the past 56 years, and I didn't find out from Don how many more years he'd like to make that run, but we'll see. So Don's going to talk to us about disaster, emergency planning, that kind of thing. Don is a guy who's very well trained. In fact, he's a trainer of a trainer. When people gather in Maryland at the National Fire Academy, Don doesn't go there to learn. Don goes there to teach. He's got that kind of credentials and experience. He's a member of the Academy of Professional Funeral Service Practices. So the part I really need help with is because Don is not a theory guy. Don doesn't talk in theory about what you should do. This is what might happen. Don has been there. Don was involved in disaster experience with the 1969 U.S. air crash in Shelby County, Indiana. Don was at the 1977 University of Evansville plane crash. He was at the Kentucky Air National Guard crash in 1992 down at the JoJo's restaurant. He was there. In 1994, he was at the Derrick and Eagle Flight 4184 crash in Newton County, Indiana. 2001, he was involved in the World Trade Center response. In 2005, he got a double, or a triple, I might say, between Katrina, Rita, both hurricanes affecting the Louisiana area, and then also upon return immediately was involved in the Vanderbilt Ward County tornado from 2005. He was involved in the 2010 Haiti earthquake, and then again in 2020 in the COVID response at Travis Air Force Base. So Don has a lengthy bit of experience. He's talking real world. He would like to share with you. I think he's going to encourage you to be ready for emergencies, but he's also going to talk about what he's seeing. Don.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction, and more importantly, I'm very excited to be here. I've not been here before, and I'm always interested in all the things that we have saved that we then continue to learn about and we can share with generations to come. I think it's extremely important that we continue to help educate folks about what has happened, where we've been, what's taken place, and if we can see real stories about how we've done it, that is impactful, and I think it means a lot for the kids who today are worrying around with trying to find out about history, but they're doing everything electronically and doing some things like that. But anyway, I'm very excited to be here today. But I would like to share with you a little bit. We're going to talk about disasters here and how they work in Vanderbilt County and what that means. And we unfortunately have had our share of these events that have taken place, from June 8 storms that just tore up the whole town to a variety of other events that happened. So the thing to think about is not so much, oh, we're going to have another one. Well, we hope not. And we hope what I'm going to talk about we actually never do again. The problem is we know in reality the chances of things developing are pretty great. We just watched tornadoes and stuff, you know, even on different parts of our country yesterday. We never know when those kind of things are going to come at us. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to prepare for that, what we need to do when it happens, and more importantly, what we can do to train and prepare in the future for those kinds of things. Part of our history here in Indiana, we'll go back at about 1918. This is the Hammond circus train accident that took place when one of our troop trains ran into a circus train. And not only was a lot of destruction that took place between some locomotives and a lot of equipment, there was approximately 100 had, between the two trains that had died. There was animals, a lot of things that had gone on and taken place in that particular event. So that's a little over a century ago to kind of give us a point of interest to take a look at. Then we move into about 1968. This was a plane that actually came in and kind of overshot the runway. Why I remember this is because we loaded up in the car to go see this. This plane was sitting almost in the intersection of St. George and 41. And for a kid, I'm like, wow, that's pretty impactful. Not too many people were hurt, or I don't think anyone even died in that particular incident, but it's just unique pointing out things happen and continue to happen. I just mentioned tornadoes. We are always on target. And if you're watching coming out of Oklahoma and coming across Missouri, we just had some stuff go right across Illinois, about mid-state up around Sullivan and Terre Haute. There was some damage done over in Illinois, and that crossed the line and came over into our area. So again, we never know when those things are coming. Stay tuned to your weather station. They were talking about some of that on the news this morning in the Weather Channel, and it's important to be informed about where things are at and what may be happening and where we may be going next. This is an overview. This is 2005. This is when our tornado came through here and invaded across the river, came over to the trailer park. Another example that this is just a history piece for us, that this, again, has happened. And it's real, and it's real for us because we were here. And many of us lived through that particular night. And so just bores out the fact that we need to be prepared and think about. This is going to go back into the 60s. This is the Coliseum explosion, where we had people in there for an event, and some canisters blew up and tore up the whole place, and there was some injuries and some real problems in there. When these events happen at the local level, here's some stakeholders that are going to be responding. Reverends, police, AMR, fire department, all these emergency units are going to be impacting and on the spot first, responding first to that particular area to figure out what's going on, trying to get a handle on it. If it is a pretty large piece, the Emergency Management Agency of Vanderbilt County is going to begin to assess and begin to pull some things into place. They have plans at the county level. And so they're going to begin to look at those and see what they need to be doing based on what they find on the response. Vanderbilt County has a plan, and this is what the face sheet looks like. And there's many pages and many units. There's multiple people and units involved in responding to a large disaster situation. And so it's programmed. We've thought about it. There's several plans all the way from the county to the federal, to the county to the state to the federal, and they all align each other so they all kind of gel together when this particular thing happens. When there's a major problem, we open a thing called the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. This is ours here in Vanderbilt County. They are constantly monitoring the weather, flights, and just a lot of data is always available there. So when something happens, they can bring different units, different people into this particular unit. They all have a desk and a place to sit. They have a phone, they have places that they can call their team and they gather data so they can collect it quickly and disseminate it rapidly out to the teams that are on the ground performing what they need to be doing. In the event that we have casualties and fatalities, the county's also prepared. There is a county mortuary annex, and in an annex in the mortuary plan, there's locations for temporary morgues that we need to set up close to the site, supplies where we acquire those, and then what do we do about manpower? Where do we begin to gather those particular individuals that are going to help supply this? Again, when that particular thing happens, when there are fatalities, the coroner is in charge of all the remains. There's a lot of investigation that takes place before, during, and after, but when it comes to actually identifying, helping remove, and planning that particular, the coroner will be in charge of all that. He will utilize some other entities, such as if it's bigger, he'll bring in the Homeland Security people, and they will begin to respond from all over the state. The Indiana State Department of Health will have a plan in this particular situation, and different units that will take place. Even the Indiana funeral directors will get involved in whatever capacity they need to be as they begin to facilitate what needs to take place in this particular situation. Remembering this, a single incident is always local, state, and federal, regardless of the assets that come in, whether they're coming from the state or the federal. The whole plan and everything operates at the local level and stays as a local incident. These units do not come in and take over. That's not the plan. They come in to assist. There are a few exemplary situations that will take place, which will bring in special fed teams or whatever, but that will happen if we have terrorism or whatever. But other than that, in the natural setting, it will go from the local to the state to the federal, and there's response teams, and there are plans for each one of those particular units. Indiana is broke into 10 different districts. There are supplies and different entities in each one of these districts, and they can be moved around. Most of them are mobile. All of them are mobile that fall under the district system. So there are plans, equipment, and manpower at differing degrees and level that could be moved anywhere in our state to assist any of the entities that need to take place. The state has their own plan. The state plan follows the same protocol. This is the state casualty and fatality plan. Again, it is very similar to the county plan. They all mirror and match each other for a reason and a purpose, so that when they have to be put together, we kind of know the language, we kind of know what we're talking about, we know the people we're trying to indicate in here, and so that is what that particular plan looks like. Indiana has equipment. We started acquiring these equipment back in about January of 1995. This is a 53-foot semi-trailer which houses pretty much all what we call the DPMU, the Disaster Portable Morgue Unit. All kind of things are in there. There are tables and partitions for rooms, and there is electronics in there. We have computers. The X-ray unit is computerized and digitized. And all of our equipment matches the federal equipment. We have based our whole protocol off of that particular system. So when we have to put two units together, they're going to match. The equipment's going to match. Now sometimes each unit is some are ahead of others with funding and new technology that has come about, and we try to share those different things. Funding is always a problem, and we'll talk about that as we go along as well. In addition, we have an all-terrain forklift, so if we are able to back up to a dock with this trailer and unload it, we can do that. Or if we need to be out in the field somewhere and we don't have any other system or way to unload it, this is an all-terrain forklift which will unload that particular trailer as we set up the morgue. We have set up the morgue in all types of facilities, including tents when we're out in the rural areas. Indiana has its own set of what we call refrigerated trucks, known as reefer trucks. Some of these were acquired during COVID by the state of Indiana Board of Health, State Health Department, and the mortuary unit has their own. We have bought special equipment to go in those so that we can maintain and house and appropriately transfer and take care of those that we need to. We need to protect and honor all individuals, and that's what we're here to do. This is a training that we were doing in northern Indiana, and we are set up in a hangar on an Air Force base there. You can see the pallets off to the left there that houses all the equipment. They're going to set up these are plastic PVC pipes that can be put together. Once they're all configured and put together, we will create walls that will provide separation for all the units that will take place and be set up to create the extensive morgue that we need to put together. This is the fingerprint unit that you see put together. It has its own special cases with all the equipment that we are going to be using for that. That can be manned by a state unit, which would be probably from the Indiana Police Lab would be down helping to do that. We could have the FBI unit in there doing that as well. And we've had both of those facilities and people assisting us. So the equipment that we have there has been drawn from those particular professional individuals and those units. So we know when they get there, they know what the equipment is that they're going to be using. They definitely know how to use it, but it is put together in such a way from the federal to our state unit. They know the equipment they're going to use and they know how to use it. They know how to use it when they have to. This is another training we did up around Danville, Indiana. We did an earthquake training up there probably 8 or 9 years ago. These are some of the units that are part of the Indiana DPMU: receiving and admitting, photography, x-ray, anthropology, pathology, fingerprint, odontology. Odontology is our dentistry section. DNA, embalming and casting. Most likely, embalming and casketing is going to be done somewhere else. We would rather be in a preset professional building to do that, but if we do not have that capability and we have to perform these services, we can do it. We have the equipment to do it. We prefer to do it somewhere else though. The goals of the Indiana DPMU, the goal is to have this unit set up within 24 hours upon its request. So when there's an accident or a problem, that request starts local. It gets sent to the state. It's received at the EOC. Once that request has been sent, and the coroner of the county would request that equipment and the team, that process would start and take place, and that unit would begin to roll. We have a team that rolls with that unit that does nothing but takes care of that equipment. They have it, when they set it up, they'll have a complete area that is nothing but extra equipment and supplies that are needed. And as each one of those units that we described a minute ago on the slide before that calls for something, extra gloves, we need aprons, we need PPE, or whatever needed, that unit will get that to the place that needs to go. If we break something, and yeah, we do. Back in '94, we were in Newton County at that particular accident. We dropped a $400 camera. Guess what? We went out and bought a new $400 camera. So we have to have the same equipment. We have to keep it up. We have to keep it available. So just because something goes wrong doesn't mean that we're just done. We either have a supply in our cache, or we're going to go out and get that immediately. And we kept Walmart hot the whole time we were there, taking care of that. This is 10 FEMA regions. Why are they important? Number one, we're part of that. We are in Region 5, as you can see. Mark, Chicago is our home base. But Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota is all designated to Region 5. Why is that important? There are specialized teams in each and every one of these particular FEMA regions. Many times you see that when there's a hurricane, or even when we had the floods due to the hurricane down in the Carolinas, we sent Indiana Task Force 1. That is an emergency search and rescue team, all inclusive, that is based in Indianapolis, and they get the call, they roll, and they roll anywhere in the country. So the FEMA regions have different things. Each FEMA region has a disaster mortuary operations team. Interesting part about that, 10 years ago there was 1,500 of us across the country. Today that number's half. We used to have 150 deployable members in Region 5. Today we have about 70. So I'll address that a little more at the end as we talk about that particular phase. There's a reason those things are happening, but the teams still exist. Each one of these FEMA regions has a lot of assets, as well as emergency response teams, as well as they have DMART people in each one of these locations as well. DMART is the Disaster Mortuary Operations Response Team for NDMS. And that's a unit that I'm part of. That's the NDMS, National Disaster Medical System Response Group. And this is a specialized team under that same group. The Indiana Task Force 1 I talked about is part of NDMS. They're on the medical side, as opposed to being on the military, on the mortuary side. But those teams can be mixed depending where we're at and what our requests are for assets. The teams can be mixed, and I'll share a little bit more about how some of that happens as well. The DMARTs, Disaster Mortuary Service Teams, started approximately 1990. I came on board in 92 with that particular team. Every FEMA HH region has one. We just looked at the particular diagram of that. We are paid by the federal government when we deploy. So there's a lot of red tape, a lot of things that happen. Of course, all you guys have been in the military know all about the red tape and how that hurry up and wait stuff starts. So yeah, we still got a lot of that going on there too. But nevertheless, paid by the federal government, communities must request the DMART. They do not automatically deploy and respond. There has to be a request, there has to be a reason. If we think there's a problem, we send in an expeditionary team to evaluate what is our need. We sent a small team down to the Carolinas after all that fiasco with the rain and everything down there. We had some teams there. In the fires in Hawaii, we have a small team over there assisting that particular medical examiner as well. So it depends what is needed. So it's possible to send in a team to evaluate what is our need, how great is our need, what assets do we need, what personnel do we need, what do we need to send. Once that is gathered and that data is processed, then a roster is put together of the type of individuals we need to respond to that, and then they are deployed. Again, DMARTs do not come automatically. Part of the team can be requested, as well as all of the team. And that's what happened in the Carolinas, and that's what happened over in Hawaii. Those were partial response teams that went over there. This is a picture of our team deploying to Haiti. This is at the airport Port-au-Prince. And actually, our base camp was not too far. We walked to the base camp from here, so it wasn't too far. We were right on the flight line, is where the U.S. federal MARC was set up. We were under heavy, high security. There was a lot of things going on in Haiti at the time. It's not always a comfortable place to be. We had to go down, and we were staged in Atlanta, and we had to go through a total medical process before we could go. One of our members was not allowed to go because of some medical issues, and it turned out he didn't have them, but they suspected it. So he didn't go. Once that took place, we deployed down into Haiti, and we had a team down there from the inset till we came back in March. That team, I was part of the team that closed the shop up and came back home. This is the federal MARC set up in Mississippi during Katrina and Rita. We are in a partial blown out warehouse. You can see an outside wall, but there's also part of the wall missing. The MARC is set up in a tent, and we have portable air conditioning unit running that tent because our humidity is about 96 to 97%, and so is our temperature. So the ability to perform in extreme tieback, which is like airtight, you can suffocate in that if you get too hot in it. So, but we were in that kind of garb to do what we needed to do. Our production was actually pretty slow until we got a pretty large air conditioning unit that could handle what we needed to do. Now we're going to talk about training. Training is majorly important, and we're going to talk about several reasons why that is important, and this slide is to trigger some of our training. Training sometimes is what we call tabletop. We produce incidents and scenarios and send groups of people in from the different fire department, the airport. A lot of people show up and we work through a scenario. We've got this kind of a problem in our community. We've got a gas release, we've got weather, we've got an explosion, and then we work our way through using all the different stakeholders that are going to respond to that. And we make a plan. Why is this important? Even at the tabletop level, I'll tell you why it's important. Because if we make a mistake here, we'll learn from it. I've been on several deployments or several trainings where we were making mistakes because of incorrect intel that we were having, and a lot of reasons. Making a mistake there is where you want to make it. You don't want to make it in the reality. The other part of that is, regardless of how much you train, when an incident happens, it's not going to be a tabletop. The incident is always a disaster. There will be elements of that particular response that you do that you've never trained for, regardless of how much training you've done. You have to learn to implement. You have to learn to get creative. You have to learn to deal with problems we had no clue we were going to deal with. And you just work through that. This doesn't mean the training is void and you shouldn't be doing it. This means you should be doing the training. When we get together like this and train, sometimes we're having fun and whatever, you learn who your personnel are. You learn what their expertise is. You learn what their skill level is. And you learn their personality. Flip that back to the disaster. The disaster happens, you're all together. When you know who you're working for and who you're working with, your anxiety level drops like this. When you're going out of the country, out of the state, across the United States, you haven't a clue who you're working with. Your level is up like this. Until those first 3 days, the first few days, when you begin acquainted with each other and you begin to figure out all the stuff you should have learned in training or could have learned had you trained. Maybe you didn't have the opportunity to do that. The stress level then begins to come down. You become homogeneous in what you're doing. Your tasks become easier. You begin to work together and things begin to happen and you begin to move forward again. The main thing is when you get on a disaster, what's the first thing you're looking for? Getting home. That's the first thing in your mind when you get there. How long is it going to take? When are we going to get this done? When are we going to be home? So when you arrive, you immediately begin to plan in your mind about deployment back home. And so that's always the goal. That's always where you want to be. This is my friend Jason Smith of the Department of Homeland Security. He does EMS on the eastern, southern part of Indiana. He and I are training a class at IU, and this is an outside exercise again. He is in Tyvek. We are in the summer. It's hot, I can tell you right now. So, we just took this quick picture. The folks at IU made us a sign so when people stepped out of their buildings had been to class and they see all this stuff all over the ground, it's like, what the heck's going on? The sign kind of began to tell them what's going on in that. It's okay, this is not real, but we are training, we are playing. These are gridded areas, and they are going out there to pick up personal effects, assess and find any type of tissues that are out there, mark them, and then we'll gather those in a systematic way when that's done. This is another group. They're in Tyvek. They're in another portion of the training scenario. And again, these are important to understand what we're doing, how we're doing it. How difficult is it? This is another training. We're in Michigan with our mortuary unit. This is part of the federal team. We're also utilizing, we have an Air Force mortuary team working with us, trying to gather the differences between a federal unit, like a military unit, as again to a civilian unit, and how the two work and work together. We did that in Haiti. We had a mortuary team from Fort Lee, Virginia with us, helping with the morgue. They would go out and do recovery in the field all over that island, or half of that island, and then the remains were brought back into our morgue. So it was actually the deployment in Haiti was the first time a civilian team and the federal team had ever been deployed together to do that kind of response. This again is in Danville. Again, you can see there are more than one station set up here. The different teams are working with, we have a person that's called a tracker. The tracker is an individual who takes a whole body, a partial tissue sample, and goes to every station to be checked off by the professionals in that particular station so we can come to a complete identification. A lot of that is done by computer today, but the computer never makes a full identification. Full identification is always done by a team of human beings, of professional people that look at all the data and come to a conclusion of who we're talking about and who we're trying to gather. This is an asset that sits in Chicago in a warehouse of terrorism assets. This was bought with Homeland Security money. This particular is a transfer vehicle for remains. We can put 30 different sets of remains in there, keep them cool, and transfer them from the scene to the morgue or wherever we need to do that. This is its maiden voyage for training. We had it in Michigan as we were doing a field exercise and working with it. We found that there were some equipment pieces that didn't quite work like they were designed to work. So it gave us an opportunity to say, hey, this is not working, we need to design something different, and we did something different. This is 2 years ago, actually over a year ago this spring. This is Marquette, Michigan. We have done a lot of things on the Gulf Coast, Haiti, we've been in a lot of heat, so we know how the heat stuff works. We wanted to test our system and equipment and our personnel in cold weather. We tried this for several years. It never got done. We get something set up and the basement closed, so this would happen, and, you know. So we wanted some cold weather stuff, and so not this spring, but last spring, we were set to go to Marquette, Michigan. Wonderful. Should be a little cool there. The night we drove up, they got 17 inches of snow. It's 20 degrees below out there, not below, but 20 degrees outside. It was a nightmare getting there. We drove along the lake, and it was blizzard conditions. I was driving with a fellow from Danville, Illinois, and he was driving and I'm watching because we haven't a clue where the road is. And that's kind of important when you're up around the lake, you know. So we found that there's rumble strips on the inside, down the middle, and to the outside. We found that people still had Christmas tree lights that were around their mailbox, and found out how important that was. It's like, oh, if we're in a mailbox, that's got to be the end of the road. So a lot of little tricks we found going up there, but we got up there at 11 o'clock at night, finally got the van hung up in the parking lot of the hotel, which was great. We're there. The next day we tested our procedure. We were in tents. We were using portable heating units. We were trying to get the unit somewhere around 50 degrees. We were in tieback. How's our equipment working? How are we working? We had an excellent training session. 20-degree weather outside, 50-degree weather inside. We actually had some remains from the college there through the anthropology department. So we got to use all the tools and figure out what was going on. It was a very educational experience for all of us. Now, I mentioned a while ago, there's 10 regions throughout the state of Indiana. We have certain personnel, we have equipment, we have different things going on. The interesting piece to the puzzle, and we've known this for years, the feds are bringing the deployment stuff down and some of the assets down. This is being turned over to the states. We've known this for several years. We've been working on this particular project. We have equipment here in Indiana. We're trying to build the personnel section of our team and get that up and running. That's not going as well. The most difficult thing is training. You've got to have money for training. The training, and sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. We're trying different things. Each of the states are doing something different. About 2 years ago, 3 of us got together. We met in Fort Wayne, Michigan, my morgue, Indiana, in morgue, Ohio, and I'm a member of the Ohio team and the Michigan team as well. Most of us are already personnel sections. We're in the DMORT section, so we've all been out and trained together. We have some other personnel that maybe haven't been out on some of those. we've decided to create a coalition between the three of us. If we have a problem, there's going to be some phones ringing, and they're not all going to be here in Indiana, which is actually through the EMAC system, we can deploy and bring these people in, we can set them up and whatever. But we've decided to create a coalition between the three of us because we know who we are, we know what we can do, we all know who has the equipment, we know who has funding and who doesn't. So out of our 6 FEMA region states, 3 of us are pretty well in pretty good shape. And we've aligned ourselves together so if and when this, whatever it is going to happen, happens, we can pull together, we can bring in members, we can bring in assets, and we can work our way through this particular incident regardless of what it is. And that's a pretty new and fresh deal. Indiana's, our logo has just been changed. That's a brand new logo. Mart's had one for years. Ohio's just changed theirs and put theirs together. So anyway, we are forming alliances with the different professional groups and teams. Many of the people, we have some friends in Ohio and Illinois. Hey, we'll be there. Call us. They're on our team. So it just depends what's going on, but we will have people that are available. Tended a presentation back in the fall and found this on this gentleman's program, and I asked him if I could have it. He was in the EMA on the ground during the military helicopter and plane crash in Washington, D.C. And he gave a complete presentation. And at the end, he shared this piece. This is an amazing piece. As we read through it, and as you've been here and worked through this stuff, sometimes time seems like it absolutely stops. You're not really sure. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. We're getting somewhere, we're getting something done. Have the right representatives in the right places. In '94, I had a little, we were in an armory up in county up there in Newton County, and I had a little, believe it or not, Indiana National Guard sergeant, and I put her in charge of taking care of the refrigerated trucks, monitoring and keeping track of all our parts. That's all we had was parts, and there was over 3,000 of them. I got word that her commander wanted to move her to some other section, and I got a hold of him and said, let me tell you something. This guy knows exactly what's going on, where everything's at, where it's at when we need it. We can't have her moved. We can't get down 2 days from now and somebody can't find the number that we're looking for. She's got to stay right there and do her job. And so we let her stay. That's part of having the right personnel in the right place and knowing that's the right person and keeping them there. Maintain your Rolodex. Rolodex is an old term. We all got stuff on our phones. You know, in a real problem area, we may not have our phones all the time. It may up and down and iffy and back and forth. Sometimes going back to the mechanical is exactly where we need to be. We can lay hands on it, we can look at it, we know where we're going. Assume good intent as we start each project. And that's exactly what we're doing and where we're at. Lead with empathy and transparency. Critical pieces to the puzzle and getting that done. Journal your experience. Most times when I go out, I have a record and I write every day what I'm doing. And when I get home, I put this all together just to remember. You lose track of your days. And when we're deploying at the federal level, we work 12-hour days, 7 days a week. You sometimes wake up to figure out, is it Sunday, is it Monday, what day are we looking at? Calendar is major important. Somebody actually detailing what today is. Because it looks like we're doing the same thing today we did yesterday. It's a little different, but it's like very repetitious. And so knowing where you're at, what's going on, keeping track of your days helps keep you sane as well. This was an excellent slide, and I asked for it because I thought it made a lot of sense. Since I've been some of the same places he's been, it made a lot of sense to me. Well, it's time for you to quit hearing me. That's pretty much it as regards to how things happen and respond. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh my gosh. He's got a microphone for you.
During the 2005 disaster, the tornado. It came across the river, and the first place it hit was Ellis Park.
Right.
When it hit Ellis Park, it killed 5 people and a lot of horses. Now, obviously, you care about the people, but in your response, do you have a veterinarian or some sort of, I mean, it is obviously you've got to deal with the fact that there's just not people.
There's a disaster veterinary unit, DVET,
Well, there has to be.
that travels with us. They would help take care of those things. Again, that would start at the local level, and then the assets would come. I was at 9/11, and we had, when we were close to ground zero, there was a complete veterinary hospital set up there for the dogs that were down there going all over, the rescue, not the rescue, but the search dogs were all over. If any of those dogs had a problem, they would do surgery immediately there if they needed to. Whatever happened, they got their paws cut or whatever, there was a complete veterinary hospital set up, and that's part of the asset. Yeah, you don't always hear about them, they're kind of down under, but that's another piece of the puzzle at the federal level that is out there in different pieces of it. I wouldn't say every FEMA region has a DVET service or team, but there are teams out there and they're ready to go, and they have been used and implemented in a lot of disasters. But you're right, there's a lot going on in a lot of these things. Those are pieces of the puzzle you just don't always hear about, but they're happening and they're being taken care of.
There you go, man.
Today on my phone, I got an emergency response, a child abducted. Are you involved in that in any way?
I am not, but there are pieces of the puzzle that implement that at the local and state level, and those markers go off as that happens, and they begin to put people in place for that. Yes, as that begins to ramp up, there are different teams that are on top of that as well, and they will start. Yes, there are responses going on with that as well.
Great, thank you for your.
I see it.
What advice do you have for us to be prepared for a disaster?
Oh, that's a great question. There are different resources on FEMA website as well as at our local level through the EMA office. First, I would say be cognizant. He's had a response. It's already triggered for him. Watch your phone. Watch the news. When we know something really crazy is getting ready to happen in the weather, go on alert and keep your eyes open as well as your ears with your phones and your electronic devices with telephones and things, with the televisions and things. There's a lot of data out there. Stay informed. It's very important to know whether I should go outside or just stay in here right now. Probably the sneaker that happens to us that's difficult to predict is earthquake. And that's always been my greatest fear. But there are markers for that, but sometimes that happens quickly and we just have to respond to it. But yes, other than that, take whatever devices that you have personally in your home as well as any, where your workplace is or whatever, and just stay attuned as something begins to trigger. Yes, ma'am.
Follow-up to that. I have a small house, and it's me and a cat. And when they're talking about a tornado warning, I have a closet that is an interior closet.
Right.
Well, me and the cat go in that small closet. I mean, is that my safest option? Or
It
is
sounds
there-
like in your house, in the center of the house, in an enclosed room, which is small, is probably the best. That's going to provide full corners of support, regardless of what else happens. That's probably your best place to be with your cat and yourself. Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned all these volunteers, 10 teams. You also mentioned at the beginning, you've shrunk your numbers. You mentioned funding and stuff like this. Are these teams made up of volunteers? Or do they receive salaries? Is this a full-time job? Can you expand on that?
Yes, I can. We are all volunteers. We are like the National Guard. We are out there and ready to go should something happen. Most of the time, I'm not paid for anything. Sometimes if I have to take a computer class, 30 minutes or whatever, I have to report that, and there's a payment for that, so I can stay in touch with what's going on. 9 times out of 10, the years we don't do anything, I don't see a dime, unless I do something in training or whatever. And so all of our teams, even the Indiana Task Force 1, everybody's volunteer. And so you have to have arrangements with your workplace. You know, I woke up one morning at 6 o'clock and my commander called and he said, "Is in your email?" I just got out of bed. "What are you talking about?" "You're on a flight at 11 o'clock to Travis Air Force Base." And I'm like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, you're being deployed to the apprenticeship to manage that at a medical level." And I'm like, "Okay." So I immediately call my boss and say, "Hey, coming into work today." You know, and then I had to put a bunch of things together, basically pack a suitcase real quick. A lot of my stuff, I know where it's at real right. It changes when I'm going to hot to cold or when I'm inside or outside or whatever. There are different pieces of equipment I'll put in that bag. But other than that, yeah, we don't see anything. But the minute I get on that plane, the clock starts ticking, and it didn't quit ticking until like almost 12 o'clock in Sacramento before I finally found my bed.
But in the earlier part of your presentation, you mentioned funding, and you shrunk down. You have adequate personnel now to meet these potential disasters.
There is funding set aside for different things at the government level. It has to be deployed, and that door has to be open. I carry a federal credit card. Yeah, isn't that cool? There's $1 on that to keep that credit card open, but I better not use it. If I use or actually grab the wrong card, man, it flags immediately because you can't buy nothing for $1. But I mean, so the minute I deploy, that card comes on. If I need that card for, you know, a taxi or whatever, when I get to the other end, that card's alive and it's useful, and I know when I can use it, when I can't. But other than that, that card is dead, actually. So that's kind of how the funding works for deployment. Now, the other things we do, the training has to be approved, and that money has to be put out there ahead of time so we can buy the supplies we need and go rent buildings or whatever we need to do. That's preset. We haven't had any major training in the last couple of years at the federal level. With this exception, I mentioned that we had training in, you know, Michigan and all those places. My team pays for all their own training. We have an annual training every year in the spring. We were in Ohio. We were in Fort Wayne this year. Last year we were in Marquette, Michigan. We decide who's going, and we pay our own way. We pay travel, we pay hotel, we pay everything. There isn't too many pieces of that puzzle that are available to us. So we put our money where our mouth is, or vice versa, because we want to be trained. We enjoy being together. It's kind of like a reunion when we get together, regardless of what we're doing. But we are a family. And when we eat the streets running, we are a family. And we get it done. And but we pay our own stuff in that regard. Every now and then the feds will have a federal and a national training. They'll pay for that. The last one was in Indianapolis. It was several years ago. It was right after COVID, as a matter of fact, so it was in 2021. So.
Yeah, I was just curious, what's the worst event you've been involved with? What's the worst event?
Wow. I've been in a lot.
Was Haiti the worst one?
Haiti was pretty bad. Haiti was a steer. They told us that the only worst place we could be would be being shot at. But it would be a steer because of the conditions, the heat and whatever. We found tarantulas and stuff in our tents when we finally tore those down. They had these little lizards running around. They weren't too big a deal. We hadn't been there a day till a team member, not my team member, was kidnapped and held for ransom for $1,500. And so we were not allowed to go anywhere outside our camp unless we had an armed guard with us. And we did get to go over to the UN facility, and we went there because they fried hot dogs and we weren't eating MREs. And we loved getting something hot and fresh like that. So we paid our way over there. The first day we walked over there on our own. After that, no, you're not going on your own. somebody's gonna grab, we had concertina wire around our camp because one night there was somebody in our camp that shouldn't have been there. And so, and we had a guard walking our camp all night long. Many times we were up at night going to the bathroom, hydrating and not hydrating and all that stuff. But there was a guard walking around the whole time we were out because we didn't want anybody in our camp. Because they were either stealing stuff. They didn't do any harm, but they were trying to steal stuff because we were Americans and we had stuff. And, you know, so, but nevertheless, that was pretty bad. The disaster in Newton County was pretty rough. UV plane crash was pretty rough. Yeah, we just lost one of our psychological trainers with us a week after we had our training in Fort Wayne. He had developed a heart attack and died. So we have people on board with us that try to take care of us as well. We do try to do that. So
I want to thank you for your presentation this morning. I also volunteered twice, actually, for 2 disasters. The first one, actually, I followed you because I was in Wilma, and Katrina had already happened, and for the first 2 weeks here, before that, because it was within 2 weeks that we were trained here at the Red Cross. So there's the local level, and I was interested in how you interface between local and state and federal, because I experienced that. I was at the local level, and I was a manager that was setting up the shelters. And so they trained us here and sent us from our local Red Cross. And then when we got there, we went into Baton Rouge, and then we were transported down to Sulphur, and we were meeting the people that had already gotten out of New Orleans, and we met them, and they got hit again at Wilma. So maybe we had similar experience, because we were the first ones that came in after the state National Guard. So there again, we were organized. And so I was wondering how everybody ever got organized, you know, because there had to be some central control. Because after we set up the shelters, in came FEMA, and they seemed to know what they were doing. And then the firemen, they really were doing all the cooking for us for the first week, because I guess they had the supplies too. And the state police were doing security. And then what happened after that? Then in came, you know, all the rest of the people. We, of course, got the cots right away. And we never ate so well until the Southern Baptists arrived with their kitchen. And I'm wondering who was really organizing all of that.
well, there's in that particular scenario, there was an amazing and tremendous need because of the vastness of what happened on the Gulf Coast during Katrina and Rita. It was interesting because we engaged in a lot of different units. There was military helicopters above us, and they were doing rescues and doing all other kind of things. And we had local units. We had eventually we had some girls from the Red Cross from out in the state of Washington come, and they did massages and stuff. And sometimes you don't think of these kind of things, and so they hear this. And so I don't know who buzzed who, but anyway, they brought. So we embraced anything that was, you know, you teamed up with anybody. Now, who organized all of that? There was state agencies that were trying to do that, and working with the federal government and their different agencies, but they were using a lot of military units down there because the road on the Gulf Coast was gone. And there were a lot of deuce and a halfs down there because there was half a road, or you'd have one lane and then you'd have a pothole that just wiped out. So conventional vehicles just couldn't get down there. So we had to utilize a lot of those different assets to get anywhere. And it was a true mess and a true disaster. And of course, you hardly got through one. Well, you didn't get through one before Rita came to town, and it just blew everything apart too. Now, the other part that you didn't realize that happened down in Katrina, we had 2 types of deaths and problems down there. The first one was what we call storm deaths, and that was immediate. That was the people that died due to the surge of the storm and whatever. But that surge was so strong We displaced and unearthed many cemeteries. So as time went on, we then had to gather casketed remains in cities. People would call in, I got a casket in my backyard, okay. We had a team that went out and that's all they did was collect caskets and remains that had already been buried or entombed. We had to dismantle those, take those apart, assess them, recasket them. The government bought all those new caskets, casket them, and then wait to take them and have them reburied or re-entombed wherever they were at. Interestingly enough, Mississippi's level of identification of star deaths was about 98%. Louisiana was about 92%. That's pretty impressive, considered what happened. Yes, there's some folks that kind of disappeared. Some of them ended up in Dallas, unidentified. I mean, they hid out. So those kind of things happen. But nevertheless, the work that was done with professional groups, and there were people that from here that drove down on the weekends and put roofs on houses. I talked to a couple pastors that would take teams and go, how impressive, and go down and do that. So a lot of things were happening and going on all at the same time. The only way those things really work well is when we work together. And that's the best part of training, learning who you're working with, is deciding how we can do that, how we can buddy up, learn about somebody, and we can put our shoulder together and get something done. So that's pretty, yes ma'am.
Yes, you showed a slide of Katrina in that building with the wall down and it had an air conditioning unit outside. I'm curious, what's that fueled by, and has your unit ever talked about the possibility of using solar, maybe having a solar trailer or something? When you talked about the 53-foot trailer that you keep bodies in, it has to be, what, air conditioned, has to have air filtration? And also, what personally do you think qualifies you to do what you do? Sounds like a lot of the people need to be morticians because I guess people who are surviving go to the clinics in the hospital, but you're dealing with a lot of bodies.
In that particular area, that interestingly enough, the funeral director in the DMORT system is kind of like the Swiss Army knife. When we don't have enough people to help man the dental unit, we're in there helping the dentist. When there's not enough people doing x-ray, I know several of my buddies ran the x-ray unit. They train them right there. We always have an x-ray team, an x-ray unit, person with us. But when that gets low, we put somebody else in there. We're helping pathology if they're doing autopsies or exams. We're in there helping them. We're just a mechanical person. But other than that, we have firemen on our team. We have police officers on our team for security. We generally have a complete medic unit with us, regardless of where we're at. There's always going to be problems. Somebody's going to get cut. Somebody's going to get sick. So we always have backup individuals like that as well. I mentioned we had some Red Cross people come from the West Coast and provided massage therapy for us. That is incredibly important. When I was in New York City, I worked in the medical examiner's office, and one day I thought, I'm getting the flu. I'm coming down with it. I'm getting a headache. I've got a general malaise. I'm feeling nasty. I was feeling cruddy. So I signed up. There was a room inside the medical examiner's office building, and they were doing massages. I signed up. I had to wait my turn because they were busy with the head. And finally my turn came, and the gal took me in. There wasn't this much room between the tables. They had so many tables and people in there working. This gal worked on my back, and when I left, I did not have the flu. It was tension. And if you don't think about that, you're like, well, why do we need that? Every deployment I've been on, we've had somebody like that. Those things happen, and the answer's simple. Just have the right people there. And wow, I walked out of there thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a new man. I'm in great shape. And I went the rest of the deployment without any problem. It was amazing. There was a lot of tension in New York City. There was a lot of things going on there, never got reported. They didn't want to report. I was amazed at the medical examiner's office. The ambulance would arrive from ground zero. There was an amazing honor guard that would take place right there as that individual arrived. this would open up, they would drive it in the open, they would take the body out of the car and take it into the medical examiner's office. I thought, man, this is wide open in the middle. There was police all around that end. If anybody saw a camera, they had their hands on it and deleted anything on that camera. I mean, I was amazed that there wasn't some kind of CNN or somebody there filming everything that was going on. They had it on lockdown, and I was totally impressed. I couldn't believe it was happening. So whatever was happening, even in our streets, was being controlled and taken care of, and it should be, for the honor and protection of the individuals we were dealing with and we were trying to identify. They needed that security, and I was just totally amazed how it worked. Yes, sir. Jill?
Yeah, along the same lines, I happened to be in Maryland when 9/11 happened, and lived like 20 or 30 miles south of the plane that went down in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Not shortly after, we drove up there to look around, and there was a person there who was there when immediately after it happened, and he said, how did you collect the bodies? And they said there weren't very many bodies. They were taking body parts out of the trees. Who did that? They said, well, the first responders did that. Well, I assume once you collect all the body parts, how do you put them together?
Great question. There was a lot going on with the location of the Pentagon, New York, and Pennsylvania. We had a morgue unit set up in New York City at LaGuardia. The federal morgue was set up there as an overflow for the medical examiner's office. It was never used, but it was set up. I got pictures of it set up there. When Shanksville happened, one of the problems we had, there weren't that many federal morgues available. So we called for a private morgue that was in Texas, and that morgue came up from Texas and handled what they could there at that particular site. While we were there, while we were in New York City, our assets are here, our people are here, we got Shanksville. Everybody at the Pentagon went to Dover, Delaware. I was fortunate enough, I left on the 12th at 2 a.m. and drove to Chicago and gathered with my team at O'Hare. 4 o'clock that afternoon, we flew out on a C-130 to Newburgh, New York, and we were bivouacked there the first night that we were there. So the assets are everywhere. No flights are happening. We also learned there was a possible train wreck out in New Mexico, and so a lot of things are signaling, and a lot of people's ears are perking up. Like, okay, well, who's going where? What's happening next? That ended up not happening. But we used a lot of assets. So Shanksville happened with a private team that came out of Texas. We did have a few members there that oversaw that particular deal. We were set up in New York City. The military handled it all at the Pentagon. Everybody went to Dover, Delaware. When we flew out of Chicago, when we got there, the team thought we were going to the Pentagon. And we had to change they had to change the flight pattern because we're going to New York, we're not going to the Pentagon, they're handling it all. So that was a pretty amazing flight that took place. I found that we were pulling out, I'm sitting in the plane, I'm looking out the little porthole, and a trash truck was pulled up on the airport there at Chicago. The man at the driver's seat was sitting erect in the seat, saluting the plane. He had no idea who we were or what we were doing. I was impacted. Everybody in some way was impacted by 9/11. Whether you were there or whether you weren't, made no difference. It had an impact, and we're still living with some of that impact. So, but that's what happened in Shanksville. Now we've got about 3 morgues that we can use, that we can move around. There's one in Rockville, Maryland. There's one in Houston, Texas, and there's one out around LA. So we have some other assets available to us. We also very cognizant of what happens in Hawaii all the time. because that unit needs to move over that way if we have to go do that. And unfortunately, we had the fire, so we know some of that's happened. So, but anyway, that's what happened in Shanksville.
Yes. Where is a local weather monitoring station here in Evansville? Is it at the Red Cross?
The local which?
Weather monitoring?
Weather monitoring. I think there's some of that here at the airport. In the particular piece I shot with the local EMA, Cliff has has several weather channels in there on those TVs, and they're monitoring stuff all the time. Paducah is part of the larger picture from where we're at, but there's some more local stuff that's being monitored as well in that particular configuration. So there's several pieces of that puzzle plugging in constantly, and there's somebody watching that pretty much round the clock.
Thank you.
I want to circle back down to the animals. That was fascinating earlier. What about the search and rescue dogs? How are you connected with that effort, and how are they organized?
Search and rescue dogs, there's a local team called the Ohio Valley Team. Cliff Weaver's in charge of that team, and they train periodically through our countryside in Kentucky, in the hills, and different places. They also have a lot of drone pieces to that puzzle. So when they go out, they have a trailer and electronic equipment that they use. With Task Force 1, which rolls out of Indianapolis, there is a dog component, search and rescue dog component with that group as well. And that's a piece of the puzzle that can be extracted from just the overall group and sent as a single piece, or we can use the whole team. So it just depends. There are two types of rescue dogs, or search dogs. One is medical search and rescue dog. There is a cadaver research and rescue dog. So we used both of those in 9/11 to try to find people hopefully alive in all of that rubbish that was up there. But yeah, there's two sets of that. So there's several different levels of that team, and they're interconnected to each other. I know one of the girls that lived in Newburgh had a dog, and she went to New York City with the dog. I did a program with her in the early 2002, 2003, with Cliff's team out in 4-H Fair. But there are groups that go out and do that. So there's more than one. I do know that, and I'm sure I don't know them all. So if you need a team of any kind like that, start with your local emergency management agency first. They have a complete asset group set up, and they will begin to plug in, whether it's local, state, across the state, whatever. Like in Kentucky, they know where all these pieces of the puzzle are, and that's a great place to go to find these particular pieces. Okay, is that?
I want to thank you for your service.
Let me just tell you, as a funeral director, personally, it is my honor to serve. It's deep in my heart. When I get a call, you don't ever want to go, but when the call comes, you're ready to go, you're ready to serve, you're ready to give it all you got. I had an individual tell me, when I was going to 9/11, said, you don't have to do this, you don't have to go anywhere.
Take a word.
And I looked them in the eyes and said, you don't understand. 1992, I signed a little card that said, if you will need, you call me. If there's a real need, I'll do it. I said, today is not the day to change that answer. So we laughed. Having been willing to do that for anybody, and whatever your expertise is very important. I have one piece that I would like to share with you. We're close to Memorial Day. I would like to share something special.
All right, we want to thank Mr. Simpson for being here today and sharing a lot of great information with us. And it's extremely comforting to know that there are great people like Mr. Simpson and others ready to step up in times of disaster. So please give Mr. Simpson a hand for his presentation.
I wear my emojis on my sleeve, Jeff. I know.
Our next Lunch and Learn program will be on June 4th. Look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
All right, we're done. How many of these are we leaving up?